Oh my goodness. Islam Makhachev just shook this sport to its very core. After the battle he and Volk had in their first outing earlier this year, a fight that a large number of fans thought Alex won, that Islam merely survived, he goes out there and head kick KOs the greatest champion this sport has had in recent years in the very first round. What does it all mean? Where do we go from here? Let's talk about it, fight fans. I'm Tommy from MMA On Point. A massive thank you to our channel Hall of Famers, and Islam Makhachev just cemented his spot as the greatest fighter in the world. Before we talk about the implications of what I just said though, maybe we should run down the card just to make sure that everyone's aware of what happened, yeah? In the main event, Islam Makhachev head kick KO'd Alexander Volkanovski to retain the lightweight title 3 minutes into the first round. Khamzat Chimaev earned a majority decision over former welterweight champion Kamaru Usman. Magomed Ankalaev and Johnny Walker fought to a first round no contest after a controversial doctor stoppage following an illegal knee. Ikram Aliskerov absolutely steamrolled Warley Alves with a flying knee and a flurry in just 2:07, and Saeed Nurmagomedov put out Muin Gafarov with a guillotine choke in the opening minute of the pay-per-view opener. The prelims were a hot mess with all kinds of fouls, staph infections, and officials not believing that cup shots took place. I honestly wouldn't go back and watch anything but Mike Breeden's insane comeback. Alright, now that we're all on the same page about what actual events took place, let's run the numbers on this thing and see if it can't help us learn a bit more. The UFC's first Fight Island card in 364 days saw 13 fights with 6 decisions, 3 KO TKOs, 2 subs, and 2 no contests, for a total cage time of 2 hours, 10 minutes, 57 seconds. That was Islam's 5th first-round finish in the UFC, the first in a title fight. With 2 successful defenses, he's now 1 away from tying Khabib, BJ Penn, and Benson Henderson for the most at lightweight all time. Interestingly, this is not the first head kick loss for Volk. All the way back in 2013, his first ever loss and the only one he would suffer until Islam beat him the first time was also a head kick KO. That was the lowest percentage of significant strikes that Khamzat has landed in a bout with 54%, but he took down Usman 4 times, something that up to that point had only been done once officially by Leon Edwards. That was the first 3-round fight that Kamaru's lost since 2013. Ankalaev's last 2 fights have both ended without victory for either fighter, earning him our This Dude Can't Catch a Break award. Aliskerov's 2 UFC bouts and Contender Series outing all ended within 3 seconds of each other, 209, 210, and last night 207, earning him our Groundhog Day award. Speaking of first round stops, that was Nurmagomedov's 4th first round finish in the UFC, his 9th overall. The average fight time in those bouts, 1:55 minutes. But the stats can only tell us so much. Let's talk about what really happened at 294. So here's the thing, if you beat the best fighter in the world twice, then you're probably the best fighter in the world now, aren't you? I know the first fight was controversial, but it was close enough to be disputed, meaning it was an impressive performance any way you look at it, and this time, I mean, what can you even say? The only thing you can say is that it was a short notice bout, but if Volk isn't going to make that excuse for himself, and he didn't, I don't think it's a very valid argument for anyone else to do so, because ultimately he took the fight, and it wasn't competitive. It never had a chance to be competitive because Islam head kicked that possibility away in just 3 minutes time. The fight game is the fight game, and wins and losses are fickle things, but 2 impressive performances over the best active champion in the sport right now has to put Islam at the very top of the mountain. With all due respect to John Jones, of course, but he's not had a chance to be anywhere near as active at the moment, and Cyril Gane is not Alex the Great. Islam should be number 1 on the pound-for-pound rankings on Monday. He wasn't given that spot after the first fight with Alex. He deserves it now. That said, if you've seen my video about the history of that list, you know it's a big ol' mess, so I'm not gonna hold my breath on what actually happens when they're made official next week. But what I will say is that he has the strongest case right now in the sport for being given that title, and I don't think a Jones win over Stipe right now would change my mind on that. Ask me in a month though, and maybe I'll sing a different song. Bigger picture though, Islam now has the chance to be in the argument for the best lightweight ever if he can put another title defense under his belt. It would of course be debatable like all things, but one more puts him in the same spot as the best of the best, as I mentioned earlier. And if he can go beyond that, it would only strengthen his argument even more. With the exception of that first Volk fight, Makhachev has looked near invincible, and given the lineup of lightweights he's yet to face, it's a very real possibility that he holds the title for a long time. I mean, the dude is only 31. He is in his prime right now. The best thing about where he's at though right now is that he gets to prove himself against a field that he's really not had a chance to interact with much. There's Gaethje, there's Dariush, there's Chandler, of course Charlie again, dare I say there's Connor. You know that fight is money, and you know the UFC will make it if they can. It would probably be the second biggest pay-per-view in the company's history. Point being though, Islam has a lineup in front of him that could give him GOAT status if he's able to keep that strap for really only maybe 1 or 2 more fights, and some of those might be huge. As for Volk, he revealed afterwards that he took the fight on such short notice in large part because being out of camp or being inactive has a detrimental effect on his mental health. Now, I'm not about to try and analyze what that means in terms of his health going forward, or what he should or shouldn't do because I'm no doctor, nor can I possibly even begin to understand the level of commitment and obsession it takes to become one of the greatest fighters in the history of the sport. This sentiment is certainly nothing new at the highest levels of fighting. You could argue that his need to be active led to him making a rash decision in taking the fight, but truly beyond the damage that might have come from the kick, what did Volk lose here in terms of his career? Absolutely nothing. He's still the best featherweight in the world. You could argue that he would have had a better performance with a full camp, of course, but the fight happened. It was what it was. He wants to fight again in January to stay busy. I'm sure there will be a conversation that he and the UFC brass have about why he wants to fight so much and what's best for him moving forward. What can you say about Khamzat though? On the one hand, he beat the guy that only Leon Edwards has been able to beat in his welterweight champion level form. On the other hand, it was a weird ass fight in that it even took place at all. And while I'm not going to make excuses for Usman on short notice, 15 pounds up is a bit more of a jump, and this was an entirely new opponent, unlike with Alex. The thing is though, this was a 3-rounder, a 15-minute fight that Khamzat looked a bit shaky after in terms of how his tank might have held up. Round 1, the guy was a god. Round 2, he looked very human. Obviously, it's a huge win and impressive as hell, but just like his victory over Burns, I was given some answers but left with a lot of questions still. I have a sneaking suspicion we'll learn a bit more when he fights Sean Strickland, a fight that I can absolutely see him winning, but maybe the deeper waters of the championship rounds will prove to be a problem. Time will tell, but for now, it's full steam ahead, even if the waters are a bit rocky. All right, now that we've gone through the big stuff, some odds and ends to wrap this up. What a mess of a card this was before the big fights. The Walker situation is tough because concussions are nothing to play around with, but it was an odd scenario, and it didn't help that this was the same doc who earlier wanted to refute a cup shot. What the hell was that? Either way, whether it was a good call or not, both fighters had awful luck in that situation. Light heavyweight continues to be the most snake-bit division in the whole sport. That wasn't the only problem though. Fighters were competing with staph infections, there were a ton of fouls that led to absolutely nothing happening to the fighter who committed them. Things felt a bit out of control, and it had me worried about the big fights. Luckily, those didn't end up with any trouble, but I think the UFC maybe just got lucky in that regard on this night. Overall, we ended up with a stunner of a finish. We saved a card that fell apart at the last minute with 2 huge compelling fights, and so really all's well that ends well, as they say. But what do you say? Did 294 deliver? Is Islam the best fighter in the world right now? How do you think Volk will bounce back? What happens next to Chimaev and Usman? Let me know all your thoughts. My favorite part of posting these autopsies is seeing what you all think about things. A massive thanks to Max Randall on the edit. The guy is a fucking champion through and through. He puts these together so fast and so well. Show him love on his socials, please, and go follow his new YouTube channel. A massive thanks to our channel champions as well. You guys are the best. If you want to be a part of that crew, hit the join button. There's all kinds of fun exclusive stuff that comes with it. Like and subscribe if you did and want to see more. And thank you all for watching yet another big card with me. I will see you guys on the next one.